I want to start with my program. We got a couple of topics for my program because Michigan has a really big game tonight. But before that, some news from the weekend. They got a big recruit. Kahani Rooths is Michigan bound. This is a big-time wing prospect that has a very high ceiling that friends with Doug McDaniel, by the way. I know there's been many a joke through the years from your expense of like, well, you better hope Doug's not too good because Kansas going to come calling. One of Doug's best friends supposedly just committed to Michigan. I think that bodes really, really well. This is a fringe 4 or 5-star, depending on who you ask, 29th ranked player in the country, according to 24/7. He had offers from Florida State, from Georgia, from Virginia Tech, and from Michigan. No offense to any schools on that list. One thing that has always stood out to me about Kahani, this was a winnable recruitment. That's not the type of recruitments that Juwan Howard has spent a lot of time on through the years. So Kahani Rooths joins a recruiting class that currently consists of Fat Brooks and Christian Anderson, who I know a lot of jokes have been made about Christian Anderson through the years.
I thought Christian Anderson was 2024. Are you sure he's 2025?
I believe so. Am I wrong on that?
I swore Anderson was 2024, but I might be wrong on that.
I'm going to look this up right now because I swore they're all in the same class together. They are in the same class together. The class right now, as it stands, is Christian Anderson, 3-star, 111th in the country. Fat Brooks, 155th, 3-star in the country. Kahani Roots, now the blue chip in the class. What I was going to say about Christian Anderson, a lot of jokes made at his expense. You know what he's shooting at Oak Hill right now?
You want to hear an overreaction from me? I'm not joking. Like, if you squint really, really hard, I get Trae Young vibes from him. I mean, he's smaller than him, but like the way he plays and shoots the ball, it's not. He's definitely better than what it was. You said 111th.
Yeah. So the thing,
there's no way he's the 111th best player in the country.
The thing with kids like this is supposed to be a Kahani Roots video. We'll get to that in a moment. But the thing with kids like Christian Anderson is if their entire game is shooting and like craftiness and they find their spots and they just make these heroic shots, you could either be Trae Young or you could be Foster Loyer, right? Like that was Foster on paper. It was like, we don't know how it works, but it works. And then he got to Michigan State and it just didn't work, right? Trae Young, like obviously he's Trae Young. Now he's an NBA superstar, so it worked. Christian Anderson's probably somewhere in the middle between Trae Young and Foster Loyer. But like if you squint at Trae or you squint at Steph Curry, you see Trae. I think saying you squint at Trae, you see Christian is kind of a fair thing right now. And I am salivating at the concept of like, it's small, but Doug McDaniel, Christian Anderson on the same team with like Terrace Reed front court, Kahani Roots. That's a really fun basketball team. But we're here to talk about Kahani himself, though. He's the blue chip in this class. You're our recruiting expert at Sleepers Media Enterprises. What do you like about Kahani's game, or what do you dislike about Kahani's game?
So I'll start by saying this. Don't take this disrespectfully at all, because I truly mean this as a compliment. One of the good things that I have seen, and I haven't watched a lot of Kahani, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to act like I've been following him for a very long time. Once he committed to Michigan, or once it was rumored that he was, which I believe started last week, I kind of started to dive into some film of him. And I mean this in the most sincere way possible. Like he's solid, but like he's solid in the fact that he's just like good. He's good at everything. I really think. Like, I'm not saying he's like, he excels at one thing necessarily. I just think that he, plays and does a little bit of everything and plays the game extremely well and solid. And for him, I think the fit is great as well. Even as a Michigan State fan, I do have to admit that, like, if I'm a 6'8" wing that wants to be an NBA player, Michigan has had a great track record of taking those guys and having 1 or 2 years and then putting them in the NBA. Like, that's it. I don't want to overreact and be like, oh, it's like Kentucky sends guards to the NBA, but Michigan has a chance, or has the say that they get these 6'8" wing type players and they get them to the league, basically. So I think he'll fit extremely well with the team. And like you said, looking down the line, you would have what, junior year Doug or senior year Doug by that time?
Junior year Doug.
Junior, yeah. So you have junior year Doug. Terrace is still there. Like, that's a good 3 right there. And then who knows what else is going to be in the fold. But yeah, real solid pickup for Michigan. I also put my little tinfoil hat on and started thinking some other things. Like the IMG to Michigan thing is real. Darius Acuff, currently at IMG. I mean, obviously they got Fat and Christian Anderson in that class, but Acuff himself is probably one of the better guards in the country. So definitely a good pickup for Michigan. And they didn't give us a chance to slander them either, because if y'all lost a recruiting battle to Georgia Tech, I would have some words.
Yeah. I like Kahani's game. I'll say this. I think he's a very good player. I think no matter where he went, like that's a commit you take and get excited about if you're a fan. I don't think like on paper there's as much to point to with Kahani Rooths as there has been with some of the other blue chip Juwan Howard recruits. He's the third highest recruit they've gotten in the Howard era. The two ahead of him were Caleb Houston and Musa Diabate. Obviously, both not great college players in year one, but both one and done now playing in the NBA. And I think as a prospect, those guys coming out were more blue chippy to me, even if Musa was kind of like a riser. You weren't really sure. Like Caleb was like, oh, blue chip, he's an NBA shooter. Musa was like athletic freak. He's raw, but whoa, he can do a lot. Kahani Rooths is more like just solid, like you said. Like he can do everything well, maybe nothing great. And I think like a player ranked between 20 and 30 that doesn't have an NBA skill right away, probably one of the more valuable recruits you can get, right? Because he might not be a one and done, not to play that game, but like he just might not be. I don't think he's going to be a guy that comes to Michigan and is the featured first option right away, even if Juwan's done a really good job featuring that position. So I do think he's an instant impact. Like I'd be surprised if he doesn't start on the wing in year one for Michigan. You look ahead, this is the more important part of this commitment to me. Juwan Howard has had health issues, heart surgeries, no joke. All offseason, there were a lot of jokes and a lot of questions that were very warranted thrown his way about how long is he going to be here. Suddenly, there's a core that's worth being here for, both from Juwan Howard's standpoint, but also from Michigan basketball's standpoint of how do they view their head coach. Like if I'm Michigan administration, not saying they were ever like out on Juwan, but now all of a sudden with Doug McDaniel, the way he started this season, and Terrace Reed and Namari Burnett back, you add Khani Rooths, like this is a group that on paper should be really good a year from now. And there's a lot of promise and a lot of reason to believe like, Michigan's problems were a 1.5 year blip. That wasn't who Juwan Howard is. And I think that really, really matters because on the whole, in a small sample size of his short career at Michigan, on the whole, he's been an elite recruiter. He's had good basketball teams, even with last year's team being a huge disappointment. So to me, this is a commitment that is like, oh, Juwan's still in this, because I was having my questions before Kahani committed of like, the only guys he's signed are 3-star guards that no one's getting excited about. Like George Washington III was the only guy he got the class before this. And he only got him because Ohio State let him decommit. So now this is one like, oh, he went out and won a recruitment and there's some momentum back. And I think that really matters for the program.
Yeah. I mean, you can't compare it to like what Tom Izzo did, but like people were saying, is Izzo like going to give up? Like, is Izzo done being that recruiter that he was? Izzo kind of fizzling out, I guess the term was used, and then he bounces back with the number 3 class. Now, Juwan didn't bounce back like that, but you can tell like he's still in it. He still got it. This was one of those like he still got it, and I think he can kind of put that feather in his cap, getting kind of. But I'm a little higher on Kahani than I think you are. Like to me, yeah, he strikes me as like, I'm trying to think of like prototypical college guard or college wings. He's like one of those wings that he's not going to be your best player, but he'll be like all over draft boards. And like, that's why people like him. Like, cause he has the size and they'll be like, that's a wing we can put with our team now. And like, he'll be like really good. He doesn't have to be our star player, but if I can get Kahani Rooths at 18th in the first round, I'll take him and put him with a team that's already pretty solid. They just need a piece like him. I could see him even not having like huge stats being a one and done first round NBA draft pick, I think.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I would not be shocked if it happens. I would be surprised, but I like you saying that. And more importantly, it'll be really interesting whenever they reintegrate Juwan to this year's team. It's going to be interesting for me to watch how they play, because through 2 games, small sample size, they are great in transition. And Juwan has never wanted to run in transition when he's been at Michigan. I don't know if this is a Phil Martelli thing, if this is like Juwan gave him his blessing and now here we are. But Doug McDaniel looks excellent in transition, and he's got Kamwa running the break with him, and Namari, like everyone's just in the right spots, making the right plays, rim running and spotting up for threes. That's going to work to me. And I can see Kahani fitting in so well with that, just getting out and running and catching and dunking. And I hope that happens, and I hope it doesn't change when Juwan comes back.
I don't think it will. I don't
Okay.
think it will. I think it's honestly, I think it's a lost Hunter thing. And now you're like, let's run. Like I got Nkamwa in the ring. I'm saying I have Nkamwa in the fold, so like he can run. You got Namari in the fold. Like you got guys that can rim run now. Like Hunter was not a rim runner. Hunter was a get down the court. Honestly, credit to Juwan. I wouldn't want to be a team that ran either with Hunter. I want to get in the half court and I want to get him the ball on the post and let him, run sets for him. So, I think it's going to be a thing that sticks around even when Juwan comes back. But I guess it would be remains to be seen.
Yeah, I want Kansas. Just anytime that name is mentioned, I just want it known all season long. I want Kansas. I want you. I'm not running from you. I want you. Final thing from me. Just in general, I've been waiting for the right time to say this. I think now is the appropriate time to say it. The largest mistake that anyone can make when talking about college basketball, and I think we make this mistake all the time, as do many others, is overreacting to one bad year. I think we have done a good job of saying this before. Great coaches have bad seasons. It happens sometimes. It doesn't always mean that the program is falling apart. And I think, truthfully, there is some weight to expectations that weigh good coaches down and weigh teams down. Like, we're 2 games in, small sample size, don't overreact. But there's a chance we're seeing that with your program this year. Team ranked 4th in the country that maybe should have been more like 15, 20th, and it's hurting them right now mentally. Michigan, that was last year. Preseason, everything. They were just not that good, and it hung over their head for 2 months. Like, that's a thing that matters. And I think you need to be able to separate, like, why did one season suck versus, well, is Juwan Howard out? There's no way anybody wants him here, which was all I heard all offseason. Or you and me doing this 2 years ago with Tom Izzo before he signed Xavier Booker of like, well, he's not going to be here. They need to hire Drew Valentine. Like, everyone take a deep breath. Great coaches have bad years. It happens. Yeah. And I'm not even calling Juwan Howard a great coach, but like, bad seasons, while not okay, do not indicate that a coach is done and needs to be fired. Juwan Howard right now, good example of that. And he's not even on the sideline, but he's built a bunch of momentum forward for now and beyond for a really good team.
Wow, that's brave of you to say, Gregory, and I agree.
Thank you. While it's easier for me to say that because my point guard is literally Marquise Noel. It's so fun. I can't wait.